And good evening, everybody. This is episode 20 of the Washington Wrestle Talk. I am your host, Mike. I want to apologize for not doing a live recap show last night after NXT because I received word that my great uncle Dave passed away earlier this week, and then another gentleman that I knew for the better part of 30 years, who helped mold me into the person that I am today, passed away a day later. His name was Dave Compton. I want to thank a couple of my Twitter followers, Sydney Logan and Clever, for the kind words that they sent to me. It's been kind of a rough 24 hours for me, but, the show must go on. So let's get started. First things first, I want to thank a certain individual, Tomiko. Thank you for listening to my podcast, and thank you for telling me that you did. I've always said that I would give a special shout out to anybody who posts that they listen to my podcast. And, she was really happy to hear that I had so many kind things to say about her. And I told her I'm going to tell you guys, it's all the truth. She has a very big upside in, the LFC, and I can see her going pretty far in that. I asked if she would like to be interviewed on the podcast here, and she said she would. We just have to iron out the details and how we're going to do this, but very soon I will have my very first interview, and I cannot wait for that. So let's get right into the recaps here. In case you didn't know, this is WrestleMania weekend, and there's been some big shows happening in the New York area. One, of course, was the NXT TakeOver show last night at the Barclays Center. Instead of calling it TakeOver Brooklyn, they call it TakeOver New York. Now, Brooklyn has been the site of SummerSlam for the better part of 4 years. However, this year it's going to be in Toronto. So I'm not fairly certain why they didn't keep it as TakeOver Brooklyn, but it is what it is. All the matches last night were just outstanding. I mean, you couldn't have done this any better if you were a writer, a script writer or a booker or a promoter. The first match we had, of course, was the tag team championship match between the War Raiders defending against Ricochet and Aleister Black, and what was widely speculated and confirmed as to be their final match as Black and Ricochet's last match in NXT. And, early on there was that, quote, feeling process. At one point, Raymond Rowe took down Aleister Black and went to punch him, but he pulled the punch. He held it as a show of respect. And, a few short moments later, Black went for a kick, but he pulled back, and, as a show of respect. And then, the crowd was getting into it as the match progressed. If you've never seen Hanson of the War Raiders, he is a large individual, but he does things that are just amazing. At one point, Aleister Black does a Cape Rada moonsault onto Rowe on the outside, and then Ricochet does his little Fosbury flop, whatever, and then Hanson gets up on the top rope and does a somersault senton. To see a 300-pound man do something like that is just amazing. I mean, this guy can do cartwheels and he does a handspring elbow. They had a sequence where Ricochet went for his and Hanson moved, so Hanson did his and hit Ricochet. The end was when Ricochet missed the 630. and fell victim to the War Raiders finisher. After the match, the two teams embraced in a sign of respect, and in a very classy move, the War Raiders dropped the tag team belts onto the mat and bowed to both Ricochet and Aleister Black. And, they just went absolutely. I mean, the crowd was chanting, "You deserve it," to Aleister Black and Ricochet as they bowed to each four sides of the ring. Ricochet seemed to be visibly moved by it. I mean, he was trying to hold back, but, you could see the tears streaming down his face. So you knew this was their last hurrah for NXT. The next match we had was the North American title, the Velveteen Dream against Matt Riddle. So it was title versus undefeated streak. Matt Riddle, he is a one of a kind athlete. He fought in the UFC before he became a pro wrestler, and he's only been wrestling for about, I want to say, 4 years now. I mean, but he is that good at what he does, and his facial expressions are point on, and he played the heel role very well last night to Velveteen Dream's, scrappy underdog baby face. Well, excuse me. And, a lot of false finishes in this. And in the end, Riddle locks in the Bro Mission only to be reversed into a pinfall for his shoulders to be down and get pinned for his first loss in NXT. After the match, Riddle, offers, a fist bump. And at first, Velveteen Dream wasn't going to do it, and then he does. In another show of respect. So respect was being thrown around very liberally in the first two matches, which is good. And then we cut to the crowd, and we see NXT UK Women's Champion Toni Storm and the latest signee to that brand's women's division, Piper Niven. Conspicuous by her absence, Kaylee Ray wasn't there. She might have been, and they didn't show her, but I know for a fact that she was in New York, in the New York area with Toni Storm and Piper Niven, aka Viper, from ICW. And then the next match was for the NXT UK Championship. Pete Dunne and Walter. Dunne has held this title for 685 days. So that's it's almost like a 2-year reign nonstop. There hasn't been a reign like that since, Hogan in the, when he first won the WWF title back in 1984. An unbelievably brutal, hard-hitting, British, European style match that the crowd just ate up. Walter, without a doubt, has probably got to have the hardest chops in wrestling, and that's saying something because I've heard that BT Gunn from ICW has the hardest. So I think it'd be kind of fun to watch a chop fest between BT Gunn and Walter. Dunn tried to do a triangle on the top as both he and Walter were on the top rope, and Walter reversed it into a super power bomb, and then Walter did a superfly splash off the top rope to pin Pete Dunne, end his historic reign as the UK champion, and become the new, and Walter is your new NXT UK champion. So Pete Dunne's either going to go full-time to NXT in Orlando, or he may even be a specials, or even be on the main roster either by tomorrow's WrestleMania or even Monday's Raw. We shall find out. The next match was the women's title match between Io Shirai, Kairi Sane, Bianca Belair, and champ Shayna Baszler. Um, and this was a fun one all around. Um, you know, Io Shirai and Kairi Sane are known as the Space Pirates, or the Sky Pirates. I'm sorry, because Io Shirai is known as the Genius of the Sky, and Kairi Sane is the Pirate Princess. So they did some double team combination moves to both Bianca Belair and Shayna Baszler. Towards the ending of the match, Shirai and Sane got into it because, it was every woman for themselves, and they said they would fight if they had to. Bianca Belair, she's still very, very green, but Mauro Ranallo did bring up that she is a legitimate homegrown talent, from the Performance Center, and which is true. But she has got some freakish strength. I mean, she not. God, I can't get rid of this bug in my throat. Towards the end of the match, she gave not only Io Shirai but also Kairi Sane, and they were stacked on top of each other, a Psycho Driver made famous by Super Dragon of Pro Wrestling Guerrilla fame. So, she basically had, 250, almost 300 pounds on her shoulders and just acted like it was nothing. The end came when Baszler, who had been on the outside for a lot of the match, came in and applied the Kirifuda clutch to Belair, and Belair tried fighting it, but she tapped out. So Baszler retains her title. And after that, we get shown the new assignee to NXT, and it was no surprise, but Kushida is now officially part of WWE and NXT. I just hope that they don't treat him like some of the other Japanese talents, that have come in, such as Hideo Watami or Asuka, or to some extent even Shinsuke Nakamura. But Kushida is now in NXT, so that's super exciting. The main event was the 2 out of 3 falls match between Adam Cole and Johnny Gargano. The first fall went to Adam Cole after a chain wrestling clinic basically between the two. Cole won the first fall with the last shot, which is basically nothing more than a shining wizard. Fall 2, Cole tried another last shot, but Gargano reversed it into the Gargano escape, his submission hold, and Cole tapped out immediately to even the match at 1 fall apiece. The third fall was the most exciting piece of, was the most exciting, things I've ever seen. Both guys just went all out, even dusting off some of their old pre-NXT finishers, like Adam Cole busting out the straitjacket German suplex, and also the Panama Sunrise Canadian Destroyer, and Gargano using the Hertz Donut maneuver, and they've never used those in NXT to my knowledge. At one point, Gargano had Cole in the Gargano escape again, and the Undisputed Era came out. Roddy Strong distracted the referee. Kyle O'Reilly came in and raked Johnny Gargano across the eyes. Cole kicks Gargano into the referee. We get the ref bump, and Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish come in. They give Johnny Gargano their finishing maneuver, and amazingly, the ref comes back in like nothing ever happened. So, that was that.